Hello, hello, good evening. Happy Wednesday. Hello, hello. Hi. So glad you guys are here for another episode of our Community Corner Conversation live series. This is episode 4. Yes. Welcome, welcome. We'll just give it a few minutes as people come into our dance immersion living room. Hello, hello everybody. Hey Julian. Welcome, welcome. We'll give it a couple of minutes. Just enjoy my instrumental in the background in the meantime. Hope you're doing okay. I hope this Wednesday has been kind to you. Yeah. Welcome, welcome. We'll just give it about, give or take 30 more seconds, and then we'll get it started. Today's gonna be a fun one. I mean, they've all been fun, so today we're just gonna continue on the wonderful journey that we have been in these community corner conversations. So I'll just wait a few minutes for people who are trickling in, and then we'll get started. Okay. We'll get started. Well, hello everybody. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for coming. My name is Zahra Badua. I am the Administrative Assistant here at Dance Immersion. Welcome to episode 4 of Community Corner Conversations live blog series. This is where we discuss on various topics with people within around our community. What we're discussing these past few weeks is the false dichotomy of technically trained versus self-taught or self-trained artists. Yes. Today we have again 2 amazing artists who are about to share their thoughts, their perspective, their experiences on this topic. Yes. So before we begin, I'm just going to give a giving of thanks, an acknowledgement, so we can really start this conversation the right way. Okay. So Dance Immersion's work is centered in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We give thanks for the many blessings that have enabled us to gather here. We give thanks to the ancestors for the path they have paved and for the protection and guidance they continue to offer as we journey forward. We give thanks to one another, knowing that we can only do what we do by working together respectfully and peacefully. We acknowledge that the land we gather on is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Hanishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. This includes the many people, named and unnamed, who have stewarded this land before our arrival. The territory is a subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nation to peacefully care for and share the resources around the Great Lakes. We are treaty people, including those of us who came here as settlers, either in this generation or in generation past. And those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. We are grateful to be able to share this space with so many knowledge keepers, including the courageous artists with whom Dance Immersion collaborates with every day. Adjei. Yes. So we've acknowledged the space that we're holding wherever it is that you are joining us from. What I'm going to do right now is before I let you know about these wonderful guests, I'm just going to invite them in and then get started. Okay, so just give a moment for technology to kind of, make an announcement. And then these two wonderful people will be on set with us. We got the one with the glasses. All right. There's some indoors. Okay, great. And then we got the two. Yes. Hello, my two brothers. How are you? Put this up just a little bit. Yeah. Okay.
Mic check 1 2 1 2. Can we hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Excellent.
Yes. Welcome, Kwasi. Welcome, Genie. I am so excited that you have decided to join us on this Community Corner Conversation series. So blessed to have you. How are you, first of all, before we get into anything?
I'm tired, but I'm blessed. I'm cool, That's all I can really say right
now. You're cool, tired, and blessed. All right, I'll take that. Genie, what about you?
He took the words right out of my mouth. We just got into Medicine Hat, Alberta. I was like on the highway just trying to get to this mall here real quick to do this. So we here and we blessed to have made it here safely and excited to be here today.
Great. I'm very glad that you made it here safely. Hello to everybody in Medicine Hat, Alberta. So for those who don't know these two amazing humans that I have before me, I will give an introduction. So we'll start with Kwasi Obeng Adjei. Kwasi is a Toronto-based creative artist. He began his artistic career very young as a dancer, working with numerous companies and artistic directors that include AC Mensa, Louis Cheyenne, Ambitious Movement, to name a few. His credits include the Pan Am Games, Closing Ceremony, Kira the Path, Zio, New Monuments, the Raptors Halftime. I can go on because I know you. And also, he is an amazing videographer, just multi-talented up in these streets of Brampton and Toronto. Welcome, Kwasi. Welcome. And then we have Eugene Genie Baffoe. Genie is a freestyle hip-hop dancer, choreographer, educator, and filmmaker from Montreal, Quebec. He has been studying hip-hop culture for over a decade, teaching and participating in battles all over the country since 2010. Genie is a co-creator and director of Our Scene the Movie, a documentary film on the history of Winnipeg's hip-hop dance community. As a director of Boss Dance Team, Boss, which stands for Built on Self-Success, he has choreographed 2 Winnipeg Blue Bombers CFL halftime show, 3 opening sequences for We Day, and a few dance battle wins under his belt. In 2007, Genie, Mr. In the Bottle himself, has flown out to the nation's capital to teach on the main stage for 20,000 attendees after being selected to be one of the 4 Canadian choreographers to create the official sharing dance routine for Canada's 150th anniversary celebration. Welcome, Genie. Yes.
Hello.
So yes, I'm just so excited that both of you can be here and share this space with us. So we're just going to get right into it. I know I said a little bit up in your bio, but can you explain for the folks at home, or wherever that they are, I should say, what is your art practice and how did you learn it? And anybody can go first.
I'll let my brother take first on this one. Let's go.
Oh, okay. My art practice, I do everything, I guess. Like I do photography, video, and dance. How I started was I did hip hop, so the whole popping, locking, and breaking as well, because like you're a little kid just watching You Got Served, So that was like the hot thing at the time. So like I would try to learn like every move that I saw, and like my brother was very into like crump and breakdancing with his friends. So I remember once he brought me to his school and they were doing a cypher, and I'm just like, I think I was like 7, thinking I was a breakdancer. I don't know. I thought I was doing something. And they're like, whoa. So, and then, so just went with the hip hop thing. and then went to high school and then kind of learned all the other styles like ballet, jazz, modern, contemporary. And then I actually started to like those styles more, but then, you know, cousin called me in, and this whole Afro thing kind of just blew my mind, and that's how I kind of just started to dive into that more, because for some odd reason it just felt better and like more freeing inside me. So I've been running with that for the past, I'll say like 7 years, and just kind of just like slowly trying to learn as much as I possibly can. So I went from like Afrofusion to like learning traditional African dance, you know, so that's kind of how it came about for me.
It came about. Nice. Beautiful. Thank you.
Jeez. Legend.
What about you, Mr. Genie?
What's going on, y'all? First of all, we have to find some time during this segment to go through the Zahra bio of all the amazing things that you've accomplished, which leads me to my history. For those of you that may or may not know, Zahra is my older sister, and that's where my story begins. I tell this story all the time. Listen, I began watching her do her thing and being like, yo, what is that? What is that? And yeah, that was my first inspiration, to just see my older sister just be on stage by herself at some recital show thing, just doing her thing, and I was just like so infatuated by it, right? So I remember it's like, teach me something, please, you know, just getting a couple moves here and there, and then transitioning to just getting my hands on anything I could find, right? And recording all the Michael Jackson videos, all the Britney Spears and NSYNC videos to this day. I know the Britney Spears and NSYNC collaboration, Much Music 2001 choreography from their stage performance and all that, right? It's just anything I could get my hands on, right? It wasn't until later on that I discovered that the music that I was enjoying and the beats behind it were something called hip hop, right? So just kind of diving into that and knowing more about what that was about, and that feeling really comfortable, just like my brother Kwasi said, like feeling really natural to me, the music feeling natural, the beat feeling natural, and feeling more natural to move to that, as opposed to, you know, hit me baby one more time, you know what I'm saying? It just felt more natural to move to KRS-One all of a sudden, right? So yeah, that's kind of my background and all that, right? And obviously born and raised in Montreal, moved to Winnipeg in 2006, and then just started doing talent shows in high school in Winnipeg, Manitoba. One thing led to another, and got my first teaching opportunity in 2009 in the studio, and then joining the creation of Boss in 2011, and then the rest is history, right? But at the end of the day, everything that I owe to in regards to me being in dance, still being in dance, is to this woman right here in the top corner, maybe the bottom corner. I don't know what your configuration is for everybody watching this. A big shout out to the queen right now, Zahra. That's it for me. Let's move on.
Okay. Thank you. I'm a little speechless right now, so I'm gonna kind of move on. Thank you. So for the both of you, so from what you're saying, it seems that you kind of learn by watching, right? So by watching and by observing is how you learned, and you were inspired by your brother, your cousin, your sister. So for you, those who were technically trained, or the expression of technically trained, what does that mean? How do we define somebody who's technically trained?
How I define someone technically trained is more in the traditional aspect of like, you went to a studio every single day since you were 6 years old till you're 20, until like the end of your comp season's over, or like you just been engaged with dance in that specific style for a very, very, very long time. Like I see, like when you think technical, you think like pointing your toes or turning your feet out type of thing, you know? So that's how I see it.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of similar, you know, obviously like the difference between self-taught and technically trained, like it really comes down to the studio versus what you see and just kind of picking up along the way, right? But I think for me, the reason why I'm like kind of going back and forth on it is, in regards to the technical aspects, I don't want to remove the idea that even as a self-trained dancer, you can still be learning the technical aspects of your craft along the way, you know? So I think it's interesting how we use the term technical when really I'm more floating towards using the aspect of classical or classically trained versus self-taught kind of thing, right? So yeah, there's what we call the classical styles. And then there's what we call, I guess, everything else. But even in everything else, there's the classical styles and the traditional styles and that, right? So, but I think the biggest difference is like what Kwasi said, is something where you had the opportunity to have a direct teacher or a direct mentor the entire time through your journey, as opposed to kind of picking up whatever you could from anyone that you could at the time, right? I think that's where the divide is. There's a certain structure, there's a time, I got to be in class by 5 p.m. versus I might be learning this at midnight because I just caught a commercial, you know what I mean? So that's kind of the difference for me.
It's interesting though when you say that, because when you think technically trained, you think like ballet, but like you can be like b-boying, and there's technique in that kind of style as well. So with doing that from 6 years old to 20 years old, be still considered technically trained.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm getting for the both of you is kind of removing that technical word in the association of the classical styles that we usually think about, right? Because when we say technical, we think about ballet and jazz and contemporary and so on and so forth. But really and truly, it's learning the technique of said art, right?
Yeah.
So whether, I mean, now we're talking about dance, but whatever art form it is, if you are going to learn that technique from a person or from an institution or whatever the case may be, you're still technically trained because you have learned a technique from someplace at and repetitive technique, not just like I went to one class and boom, I got it, but like repetitive technique and repetitive courses or instruction by whoever and whatever, right? Is that a fair assessment to say?
Oh yeah, you could be a technically trained street dancer. You can be a technically trained, Afrobeat dancer, technically trained dancehall dancer, or technically trained ballet dancer. I don't think we've heard of them much, but I'm pretty sure there has to be a self-taught ballet dancer somewhere, right? Like that's got to be a thing somewhere, right? Like I'm looking forward to meeting that person someday. But yeah, it's very much possible, So yeah, it's the idea of having that very specific agenda or scheduled training versus picking up as you go kind of thing.
Okay. So then if we look at the other, like, I don't like saying the other because I don't want to put them in polar opposites, but if we look at what people say self-taught or self-trained, what does that mean to you? Is that even a thing for you?
Yes, I think for me, self-trained is guiding your own learning and allowing it to shift and morph along your journey spontaneously, right? So, just like my brother said earlier, it's like, he's into hip hop, he's into popping and locking and doing all that. And all of a sudden it's like, woof, right? Like now I'm going to focus on the Afrobeat styles because it feels natural versus, a classically trained or technically trained dancer might not have the ability to just kind of shift left. The teacher might look at you sideways like, wait a minute, we were doing this, right? Where self-taught, you can totally, change lanes at any given moment and be like, oh, I'm kind of feeling this. And I can add this to my repertoire to maybe even create something brand new from there, right? So I think for me, the dichotomy of the difference becomes the very linear path of, technically trained versus the kind of squiggly line highway of a self-taught artist.
It's interesting for me because, like, when you think of the technically trained aspect of like ballet and jazz or like all those like studio types in institutions, you're kind of told what to do all the time. You're told to like, this is how you're gonna move. Whereas like I feel like when you're self-taught, you have, like what you said, like you have to you explore different things. So you would take a move that you've done multiple times, but then you'll find different ways to do it. So it's like I can learn how to do the wave and know that my arm's supposed to go ba 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 ba. But then when you go home, you then start to think different ways of how to do that. Like maybe just the arms, maybe the head, now the shoulders, the body. So like for me, when I started dancing, that's kind of how I learned. Like I'd watch it and it's like, yeah, that could be my technique class, the TV in front of me, but I still have to kind of teach myself different ways on how to move it rather than someone telling me constantly. Because I noticed that like people who have been in school or been in such a hard word to say, institution for a very long time, when you ask them to like explore and like improv, it seems very, very difficult. I don't know, like they just find it very difficult because it's just like you're just not used to it. You're told to be like, okay, you're gonna tendu, batman, grand jeté, and then arabesque, and then it's like when you're told to just dance, you're like, what is going on,
Yo, tendu, grand bat, mange. Yo, that's a tough combo, bro. Like, that's wild, man. Even from like my technically trained dancers, like, they'd be like, yeah, that's hard to do. So yeah, we might have to see that someday too. That's crazy. That's so good. Yeah, it's like, I love the point that you made, you know, it happens often that you see rigidity in you know, technically trained dancers of all styles, right? There's times where, you know, because you've been given the pattern, then the pattern is church, the pattern is the Bible, the pattern cannot be deviated from. Versus at times you see more self-taught people be able to deviate more more quickly and be more flexible with the rules, kind of thing, right? I mean, there's pros and cons to both, right? You have those that have been given that structure that have difficulty deviating and finding the freedom outside of structure, and you have those who have no structure who have difficulty coming into structure, right? And being like, hey, I need you to do this. Like, what do you mean? Bah, 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 right? It's like, no, but just you know, for this shot, I just need this and this. What do you mean? Let me go over there and do my thing, right? And obviously, like, on both sides, you know, I'm sure we've all experienced rigidity on both sides of the aisle, kind of thing, right? So obviously, at the end of the day, you want a good mix of both. But yeah, I wouldn't say, you know, even so far in this conversation, that there's more of a pro or more of a con on either side. It's just like both sides have some work to do, I guess, right? But yeah, can we deviate from structure, and can we have structure at the same time, depending on what our ways of learning are at the time?
Right. So what I'm understanding is more the freedom of exploring, the freedom of saying, let me take a left instead of a right, or let me circle back, right? Versus just going, this is the path, this is the road, we're not going anywhere, we have a point, we have a direction to go, in terms of like self-taught. So in that sense, can both work together? Can a technically trained person in whatever aspect or whatever art form that they're practicing be able to self-teach themselves? Wow, English. Be able to train themselves in another art form, or in the same art form, but explore that art form on their own? Is that possible? Or is it that, no, I am technically trained, so I will stay in my technique? Or no, I am more, you know, improvisation and self-taught, so I stay in that, as you would say, structure kind of form?
I've seen in my career and in my experience, I've seen such an interesting mix of all the things you just said, because I've seen technically trained dancers, you know, come over to the freestyle side or the improvisational side of things and just be blown away by the amount of freedom and feel like their shackles have finally been unleashed, you know? And at the same time, I've seen, you know, self-taught, more freestyle dancers go into the studio and be so excited that they know that practice will actually start at 6 p.m. You know, like, so there's all those things that kind of go into play, right? But I feel like I'm going to throw it to Kwasi now.
Wow. I think, like, in regards to the question, I think it depends on the person, right? It's like when you're so used to something, you kind of have to like deconstruct it and kind of like pretend like you don't know anything and trying to like relearn something as well. Because like when I went to high school and we had to learn ballet, like I had no idea what I was doing, right? So it's like it was hard because my body wants to be loose and jello, where it's like ballet is so like, I'm not gonna say stiff, but like it's so upright, right? So it's like it took me a while to understand how to like, okay, we're doing this, okay, this is what I need to start doing. I need to have my arm up strong, my back straight, everything in alignment. So it's like you're able to like go from one to the other. It's just breaking it down. Even with Afro and then going to hip hop, it's completely different. It's a different language basically. So it's just being able to translate a little bit what I had known Afro, but understand that I'm doing hip hop in this space. If that made sense.
Yeah.
So then let me ask you a question. So then in saying that, does the technical aspect or the self-trained aspect depend on your practice? And I know we're just talking about dance, but I mean, like Genie, you're a filmmaker. Kwasi, you're a videographer. In other forms of art, does your training depend on the artistic practice? Is one better than the other depending on the art form that you are practicing?
It's no. I kind of want to say no because at the end of the day, all of this, especially art, is subjective, and therefore you are subjugated to trial and error and figure it out as you go along, no matter what path you're on, right? So you can be the most technically trained artist in any discipline and still totally fall flat on your face with what the goal was, right? And you can be self-taught and completely fall on your face with what the goal was. So for example, for me, you know, my bio, it said that I had created the documentary. I had never created a documentary in my life, nor have I ever been to film school, right? And there were so many times because I didn't have the background of how to do these things, and I'm like, where do I even go next with this, right? How do I accomplish this thing that I have in my head? How do I actually put that on screen for the audience to see at some point? I don't have that skill set, so I have to continuously do a trial and error, which actually at times either slows down my development or speeds up my development because I'm hungry to get that goal, right? So I feel like the two sides of technically trained artists and self-taught artists is the difference in when we're technical, we are very driven towards whatever that goal is, and we're going to achieve that goal and get those milestones, versus when we're a self-taught artist, we're very driven in discovery of how we can possibly make this happen without any roadmap whatsoever, right? So yeah, so I think regardless of the art form that we're talking, whether it's, you know, videography or filmmaking or dance or painting, like whether you are trained or whether you aren't, it's really just, I don't think it actually creates more success in any way, shape, or form, because at the end of the day, what's driving that is your actual passion, your actual drive, and your actual determination to get the job done no matter what it is, right? So yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling right now in regards to the success rate of each one, depending on the art form, you know?
Mm-hmm. Kwasi, what about you?
I kind of agree with that one because it's interesting. Like when I taught myself videography, it was a lot of, I first was getting a lot of like critical with all the books I was reading. So I was like, okay, we have to do this, 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 and this. And then when I started to actually just go out and shoot, like I never had a plan. It was just me exploring and seeing what happens. And then if I needed to add something, let me add it, or just try new things. So it was, I feel like you kind of said it all, where it's just like when you're self-taught, you explore more, whereas you're technically trained, you want point A to point B in that order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I'm understanding is that first, it's what's your intention, right? Like, what is your intention? What is driving you to do ABC? What is your determination, and what is your end goal, and how you're gonna get there? But you may either think of my destination, or you may just worry about, let me just take one step at a time. And if I get one step, okay, great. And then I'll get the next one. So not necessarily your background, but more the person and how what drives them to the artistic practice, and what the determination that they have in continuing said artistic practice, or changing gears to another discipline.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 Okay, so question for you. Is there, looking back at, your history, right, your experiences and things, is there anything that you would have done differently, right? I know, Kwasi, you said that you were watching your brother, and then, your cousin said, okay, we're going to go the Afro route, and then so on and so forth. So is there anything for you that you think, looking back in hindsight, you may have done differently, or you would have kept the journey the same?
There's some aspects that I would have kept the same. Like I definitely would have kept like learning videos off of YouTube, watching music videos, just watching my cousin, because I used to be so good at like watching and then doing it. I think the only thing I would change is like I would go back and take more like ballet classes for me, because I love the idea of having that type of technique and just being able to control and understand the body a little bit more, and having more control rather than, I feel like I don't have control of my body, to be honest. I kind of just do things and see how it works, whether it works or not. Whereas I feel like if I had done those styles, I feel like, it's not like I can't do it right now, but it's just like having that technical aspect younger and then building up to where I am now. I feel like it would have been, my experiences would probably have been a lot different. Because like me, I don't count. So when the music starts, I will say ba 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 ba, and then we go. So like that's something that I would say I'm still slowly trying to understand. It's like counting in music. Even though I've been doing this for a while, it's just I go off the beat. So if I don't hear the beat, like I get confused. Whereas like counting kind of throws me off as well. So.
Genie, what about you?
It's tougher to answer because every moment and every failure and every step of the way has gotten me to this point that I'm actually really happy about, you know? So if I take away something or I change something, who's to say that I don't get to do the things that I've been blessed and been able to do, right? That being said, I think there were a lot of opportunities to take classes from individuals that I probably would go back and take. And the reason why I know, like in hindsight, that I didn't is because like back then I was so almost stubborn and gear heavy on like self-taught. I will figure this out. You know what I mean? So I think I missed out on a lot of opportunities when people came to town to teach, or being able to ask someone questions that I can't ask because they're no longer in town, or even someone that's local that's teaching a lot, being able to kind of pick their brain on certain things, right? I think a lot of those mistakes that got me here, at the same time, maybe those mistakes would have been lessened and I would have felt a little less consequences from a lot of those mistakes if I had a little bit of that knowledge quicker. I would have seeked it out in a more efficient way, you know? So I can definitely think of some moments where I'm like, you know, if I had just asked them, then probably that wouldn't have happened, you know? But at the same time, I got to do the things that I got to do because I didn't ask them, right? I don't know. Like, it's hard to say, right? So, but at the end of the day, yeah, just like what you said, like I think there are numerous amounts of training opportunities that I voluntarily missed out on, that looking back on it, like I really should have went to those. And who knows where else that could have taken me, that could have been really exciting as well, right? But at the same time, no regrets. Regrets with an A, you know what I mean? So we good.
Things happen for a reason, you know?
That's right.
Yeah, so everything happens for a reason. Everything is a chain reaction. So what I'm getting from you guys is you would have kept everything the same, maybe just ask more questions,
Yeah.
and then maybe take a little bit more classes. And then Bakari wanted to add into the space that rhythm is the base of movement, not counting. So if you're not counting, it's okay. Everybody does how they do what they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Vivian says it's never too late to keep learning. So even if you didn't get to take the courses way back when, you're still moving and grooving, so you can still take courses if that's what you
Yeah.
want to do.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
know why. I don't know why in my mindset it feels like if you don't have it by the age of like 20 or 19, it's like you're not gonna have it later on in life. I don't know why that comes into my mind, because I think I get so caught up hearing the stories about like, you know, I guess like I'm always in this ballet aspect of things. It's just like, you know, you have to develop. It takes years to develop technique at like a monumental level, and it's like when you look at it, you think, wow, if I had done it from that moment to now, where would I have been? Because, you know, I don't know, that gets to me sometimes.
But then do you think that certain things have hindered you because you didn't start young? Like Bakari said that he started dancing at 17. So do you think that, like, I mean, you've done amazing things throughout your journey, and you're
It's,
still very young. So do
it's
you think
really
that you missed out
just,
on certain things because you started later, whatever later means?
I don't, not necessarily, like, it's obviously more of a mindset for me, because it's like when I look at the dance, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have had, like, I could have done this when I was younger. Like, obviously, I can do it now. It's just sometimes I feel like this is obviously a limited mindset, but it's like the opportunities to be able to like learn in like an institution where it's like every single day where you're learning that technique. I feel like maybe, because I don't know how to find that now, but like I know if I was younger, I could have been in a studio every single day learning and learning and learning. Like nowadays, like from what I see, it's like it's always like drop-ins. There's attentions that occur, but not so often in my eyes, unless people can send them to me. But it's like I find it hard finding a place where like I can consistently train and learn until the very end.
Okay, fair enough. Genie, you want to add anything to that?
I was younger, but I started earlier because I started probably 12, 13, 14, somewhere there. And again, a lot of my colleagues, that have gone through the studios will say, I started when I was 3, I started when I was 4, just kind of skipping in the studio, holding one of those like kite things. I don't know what they're called, right? Like those gymnastic whip things. See, if I got in the studio, I would know what this thing is called, right? Like a ribbon. You see, and you knew that, so you're fine, bro. You're fine. I didn't know that. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I would have loved to have the opportunity to hop through the studio with the ribbon and make shapes and then do crisscross applesauce. Like, that's lit. Anyway, but alas, I didn't get the opportunity to, right? So I don't know. It's just, it's been an interesting way of going about it. But again, in my career, because I've taught in classical studios, I've taught, street dance and in studios, I've gotten to learn that structure and learn those things and see those classes as an adult and actually get to just kind of sit in on them and just watch. I've actually asked a lot of my ballet colleagues, I was like, hey, can I just sit here and watch? You know what I'm saying? Right? And kind of just learn that way. And just kind of take how they teach and how they approach music and how they count, and then just go take that into my practice in the studio. That's for my class. It's happening 40 minutes from then, right? So I believe that there's still ways, even in the late start, to still kind of catch up to that knowledge. And that goes back to asking those questions, right? So yeah, there's the ability to go into those ballet classes and take those classes. For me, I feel a lot more connected to talking to those instructors and talking to those mentors and those teachers and just kind of picking their brain on how they see the world and how they see art. Like I've had a lot of those conversations, a lot of those late night discussions with ballet masters across the world, and it's completely opened my eyes of just completely discussing, right? 'Cause at the end of the day, that's what art is, right? We're all trying to have a discussion in all these different types of ways. So I go about it that way. I was like, can I just kind of talk to you? We can have a conversation about art and pick your brain that way, right? So though I didn't start as early as a lot of those people did, in my later years, I'm catching up by having those conversations, and that's kind of the way I've gone about it at this point. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To me,
So what we're talking about. Sorry, go ahead, Kwasi.
Oh no, I'm just saying, me and him are the same. We just ask bare questions whenever we have the chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to interject and saying, when knowing the both of you, you ask a lot of questions. And it's great. It's just because I'm on the receiving end, I know you ask a lot of questions.
Like,
right? The classic. I have a question. But in saying about conversations and questions, how has it been? Because both of you have worked with a wide range of artists from different practices, different genres and disciplines and things like that. Can you tell the difference between what we're saying, a technically trained or a self-taught? And has your experiences with them been different because of their training, or where they or how they got to that? Or the journey before they got to you, before you met them?
Yeah.
One more time. Sorry. One more time.
Okay. Let me try this one more time. I know it was a long-winded question, so let me start this one more time. In working with other artists, right? Did their experiences, so meaning if they were technically trained or self-taught, did their experiences affect the way in which you work together, or the product or the end result that you had to do, right? Did it influence your working together because of the fact that they were self-taught, or they were technically trained or classically trained, or however we want to say it?
Yeah, I'll jump in first here. 100%. And those experiences on both sides have been some of the most amazing and challenging and hilarious instances in my career. I think I can chop it down to like this very basic way, and then I'll kind of blow it up from there, right? So it's like in a rehearsal, you'll tell who is the technically trained dancer versus the self-taught dancer when you go, okay, I'll listen up, and you'll see who actually stops talking and who doesn't, right? Like that's the base of how this thing kind of goes for me, right? Like, because in a studio, like, like when the master says or the teacher says, all right, you're dome, it's military silence. I remember the first time I went into a studio to teach, and I was at the front of the room, and that's when I knew I had power, because I was like, yo, and I put my hand up, and all 30 kids were like, boom. I was like, what? Right? Like, versus in another space, maybe I do the same thing and they'll look at me like, well, why is his hand up? What's going on? Right? So again, that structure helps, right? So that structure helps a lot of technically trained dancers be able to kind of relax and take notes, where self-taught dancers just like, okay, just show me the thing and I'll let you know how I can do that and blah, blah, right? But at the same time, it's sometimes it also comes down to the professionalism of what the art form actually is, right? Because when you are technically trained, you've gone to an institution or you've gone through structure in school or studio or whatever. Again, there's a way of doing things. There's a way of listening and gathering information where, again, self-taught people kind of gather information from whatever they see, right? So sometimes it's harder to get them kind of focused on the thing right in front of them, right, kind of thing, right? So no disrespect, but that's just kind of my experience with the whole thing, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of my 2 cents, yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
And I'm saying that as a self-taught dancer, it's hard to get my attention, so yeah.
So I'm going to see if I can answer this question, if I understand this question that well.
Okay.
Okay. So I would say, like, working with self-taught versus working with technically trained dancers, I feel like the experience is different, because when you're working with like technically trained, I guess when like working with choreography, you're all trying to be the same. You're all trying to move this in the same way, have the same movement. Where when you're self-taught, everyone kind of does the same movement but in a different way. I don't know if that's making sense. So it's like, an example is like, I remember I was assisting AC and we're doing choreography, and we're doing the same movement, but how she emphasizes a certain move was different from how I did it. So when I had to teach a bunch of kids when she wasn't there by myself, it was difficult, because it's like I'm trying to give them the same essence of what AC does to them, but I'm doing it in a completely different way, because I'm so used to dancing with my friends and we do the same poco, we do the same leg work, but everyone's doing this in a different way. And when you watch performances of, like, let's say like the United show that we did recently, or not recently, but like last year, you can see that everyone is dancing the same movement, but we're all different in the way we execute our movement. So I feel like that, I guess that's my experience, where it's just like when you're technically trained, you can tell like you're trying to be precisely like that person as well. So.
So what I'm getting is how a classroom or a rehearsal is run may be different depending on who is there in the room, and then also the visual of it may be a little different, depending on, you know, their art form and things. People might be, okay, we need to look as one, versus other people might be, we're going to look together, but you'll still see everybody's nuances and everybody's story, but they're still doing a 2-step, but it's just the 2-step might have a different connotation within each person. Yeah.
And that extends to so many different aspects of you know, even when we're talking about performing on the stage, right? Like, I remember one of my favorite stories was from I used to teach at a ballet school, teaching street dance styles at a ballet school for almost a decade. And I remember the story that I was given when I first got there was that they went, the original principal and director, they went to a hip hop show, right? And their first thing that they, like, it was a culture shock to them, because the first thing they realized when they sat down and the show was about to start was that there was no program, right? Like, there was no like list of what the dances were, when the show was going to end, when the show was going to start. They were just like, program, nothing to grab when we come in, no about the choreographer, no synopsis of each piece, like none of that, right? And then the show started and everybody stood up and started yelling. They were like, we're not just sitting and enjoying the performance, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? So all those aspects kind of go into that, right? So they realize, like, oh yeah, like when you go outside of what we know, it's going to be a totally different thing. And like, yeah, you're going to almost, I don't want to say clutch your pearls, but either way, right? Versus when you know, maybe a street dancer goes to go see the Nutcracker, we're kind of sitting there like, can I say bloop bloop at any point? No, we're not doing that. We're not. Okay, all right, that's it. It's fine. Let me just sit here. Let me cross my legs and wait for the third act. You know what I mean? Like it's like, so all those, like, it extends so far beyond the studio and it gets to the stage and it just gets wild. You know? So yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's something that we don't necessarily think about different culture shocks until you go somewhere else. You know, and when you when you do, let's say like traditional, traditional West African, everybody's joining in, right? Like everybody's joining in, we're clapping, there's like a call and response. So there's a special relationship between the performer and the audience. It's not, we're not separated. We're all in this together, right? Versus other forms, it's like, I'm going to stand there and not move and appreciate your art, right? For me, when I first started performing and people weren't like yelling and all these things, I was like, I don't think they like it. But in the end, you have a standing ovation. But that's when you realize, oh, the appreciation of said art is just different depending on the form that you go to, right? So it wasn't that they didn't like us. It's just they appreciated it different. So that's a really good point to bring as well that I don't necessarily think of.
Yeah, them throwing flowers onto the stage at the end is their bloop bloop version. Like there's just different language. That's all that's happening there, you know?
It's just a different language, but at the end of the day, it's all art appreciation. Okay, so my last question. If you can speak to young artists or artists who are now coming into the artistic practice, I always say, the artistic journey, I call it your yellow brick road. So those who are now starting on their yellow brick road, what advice would you give to them so they can be able to find their voice or recognize their voice?
That's a great question.
In regards to anything?
Sorry?
Anything? Like, not in regards to, like, not like self-taught. You know what? Okay, you know what? Let me
anything. I'm going to leave it up to you. However you want to answer that, that's up to you. I don't want to guide your answer. So in anything, find your voice in anything.
She doesn't want to technically train our answer. Let's go.
I'm going to give you a little small. To a dancer who's coming in, advice that I would give them is know who yourself is first, because that will make a big impact. Because I feel like a lot of people are trying to be like everybody else, you know. I use this analogy where it's like not everybody can be Spider-Man, not everyone can be Superman, you know. Everybody has their ability when it comes to that. Dance is like a superpower in some aspect when you really think about it. And it's like being able to say, I'm good at this, but I can also do other things as well is dope. You know what I mean? Like me, I do Afro, but I can also do hip hop as well. But I accept the fact that I do this. I'm not trying to be like someone else and neglect what it actually is that I'm able to do. You know? Like, I see a lot of technically trained dancers like not show that aspect of themselves, and it's like maybe that's not the route that you should be taking. Maybe you should be taking the route that is like right for you. Everybody, like I know everyone wants to be like a commercial dancer and get into the jobs and get into the movies and the music videos, but it's like you have a power that is different from other people, but you choose not to show it. So once you know who yourself and know what you're capable of doing, you won't feel it necessary to want to be like somebody else just because you see a little bit of success in them online. You know, oh, this person's posting a video, they got 1 million views. Okay, I want to do the same thing. It's like, no. That's that person. You go do your own thing. The time will come, you know, and people will see who you are. When you're how do you say this word? Authentic to yourself, people will, that's what people notice. There are so many dancers that I'm like, wow, like you are actually you when you're dancing. You're not trying to be someone else, you're you. So I always remember you when you're dancing. So when there is a casting call for any type of dance, they'll be like, oh, I want you because you know yourself. That's how that's a little small.
Small. What about you, Genie?
Yeah, if you don't, it's such a great answer. If you don't know yourself, somebody will tell you who you are, and then you won't recognize yourself anymore. You know, so yeah, that's a great answer. And the two things I would add, or the one thing, we'll see where my mind goes, is also your why. Why are you doing this, right? So establishing, obviously, knowing who yourself is, which you'll discover along the way, but also asking yourself the purpose for you doing this in the first place, right? So, you know, Kwasi says, like, yeah, if your dream is to be the commercial dancer, if your dream is to be on Broadway, before that, ask yourself why, right? Because if you ask yourself why and your why is solid and there's a purpose to it, all of these obstacles that will inevitably come, or maybe not, or whatever, won't deter you from that strong reasoning and that strong like foundation that you have for why you're doing what you're doing, right? So if I want to make a film because I want to da-da-da-da-da, even when things go completely sideways, it's like, no, but I wanted to do this because I think this is important, so I'm going to push through it anyway, you know? So that's what I would add. It's just like understanding and making sure that your reason, your raison d'être is very, very, very strong, and that you keep that in mind the whole time. And the next thing I have here is staying curious and continuously asking question after question after question. And when your mentor says, all right, that's enough questions, you say, but why? I just have one more question. It's just staying curious, keeping your mind open is basically what it is, right? Having an open mind. Because yeah, if somebody's going to come along and be like, hey, you want to try this? Having the open mind to try it, because there's going to be something about that you're going to take on, right? If we always say everything happens for a reason, and somebody telling you, hey, do you want to try this? Or hey, check this out. There's a reason that's also being brought into your life, right? There's a reason why the universe or the powers that be, you know, source energy, God, whatever it is bringing that into your life. You want to take that in and then see what kind of tidbits you could take and add to your arsenal and collection of things and artistry and all this other stuff, right? So have a strong why and staying curious and having an open mind to anything that may come your way, whether you're technically trained or self-taught. Actually, on both sides, equally important to stay curious, ask questions, and see where the path takes you with all of that curiosity.
Wow. All right. So discovering yourself, knowing who you are, being grounded in who you are, knowing your why. Why am I doing this? What is your intention? Knowing your why and your because. And also understanding that your because might change, and being comfortable with the becosing, we'll make it a word, the becosing changing. And then also constantly asking questions to stay curious. That curiosity will take you far. And that curiosity will also connect you to people. So if said mentor is like, I don't know, but they can be able to connect you with somebody else, right? Like Kwasi said, oh, I don't know if I can be able to take courses or so on and so forth. And then Bakari had wrote, oh, there are elders that are giving courses, so you can reach out. So you ask, and then there's somebody else that can be able to give you that information. Yes? Is that a fair
Yeah, like that's
summary?
how I met Lua, you know. I remember I was at City Dance Corp and AC walked in. I'm like, hey, AC. You know anyone I learned traditional African dance from? She's like, Lua. And I was like, boom, okay. It's just so ironically that she was having like weekly classes on like a Tuesday. And then from there it was just like, look where I am now. So
Yeah. Okay, so before we say goodbye, is there anything else that you would like to add to the space?
Zahra moves.
Register today for whatever is happening next that she's doing. And that's it. All right.
Hey, all I can say is I appreciate, this opportunity to be here and speak. I never expected to ever do stuff like this, so I'm very grateful for it. And it's just ironic, to have my brother on the side, my sister on the side. And it's like the conversation is just interesting. It's interesting. I knew it was going to be very light because we asked me too many questions. And like Zahra says, well, I have an answer. So,
100%. Yeah, I know this is great. This is really, really eye-opening. I learned a lot from both of y'all in this discussion. And thank you to everybody that tuned in. Mike True says, dancers to the wise. Yes. Honestly, everybody that's an artist out there, whether you are or aren't, thank you for doing what you do, and thank you for contributing what you contribute to this planet. All of us, sticking to what we're passionate about and moving our cultures forward is what makes the world go round and what makes this a great place to live for all of us, So continue to share your art, continue to share yourself, and allow the world to see who you are. And that's really what it's all about. You know what I'm saying? So Yeah. Peace and love, unity, and having fun.
My brothers, my kings, I appreciate you so much. I admire the both of you as people and as artists. So Kwasi, thank you so much for accepting this invitation and for sharing your knowledge and expertise and your experiences. Genie, thank you so much for also sharing your knowledge and experiences. Both of you have amazing energy. Thank you to all those that were with us through this conversation. We appreciate you. Blessings and appreciation to you. Thank you to the Dance Immersion team. This would not be possible without our founder and executive director, Ms. Ravine Scarlett, our curator and program director, Tamia Warren Surrey, our beautiful communications assistant, Jillian Grayson. I am Zahra Badua, the administrative assistant. We thank you, we thank you, we thank you. We hope you have a great rest of your week. We will be back next week again with more amazing artists. Stay true to you, stay authentic to yourself. Follow Dance, so you're already here, but follow at Dance Immersion for more things, because we always have things coming up. And yeah, thank you. Again, brothers, I appreciate you. I appreciate the both of you. Thank you so much for sharing this time and space with me. My heart goes out to you. And I love it. Yeah, it's true, Jillian. They have a lot of energy. They have a lot of energy. So I had to come with a lot of energy in order to match them, because there's a lot happening here. So have a great evening. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And stay tuned. This, if you missed it or you wanted to share it with somebody else, it will be available in a couple of weeks on our YouTube channel. So stay connected, and you'll see when it's going to be available on YouTube. So thank you and take care.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.